The 78 nurses that were Japanese prisoners for over 3 years have been called the Angels of Bataan. Major Eleanor Garen was one of these angels. Eleanor was born in Fenville, Michigan in 1906. However, the family moved to South Bend, Indiana shortly before 1920. Eleanor pursued a career in nursing, graduating from Chicago's Wesley Memorial Hospital School of Nursing in 1931. With the war in Europe heating up, a call went out to enlist more nurses in the U.S. Army. On January 9, 1941, Eleanor heeded that call and enlisted in the Army Nurse Corps. She spent time at both Fort Hays, Oregon, and Fort Benning, Georgia, before being selected to take part in the large-scale Louisiana maneuvers in August 1941.
While down there, she was asked what duty station she wanted throughout the military, and she actually picked the Philippines. However, she was second on the list. There was one of her nurse friends in her unit that was top on the list. Unfortunately for that nurse, while on those maneuvers, she had a horseback riding accident. Because of this little quirk of fate, Garen ends up going to the Philippines instead of her friend. Unfortunately, that would mean that she would spend over 3 years as a prisoner of war under Japanese control in the Philippines.
Eleanor arrived in the Philippines 2 months before the Japanese attacked on December 8, 1941. Garen volunteered to go to the front lines in Bataan. She later said, "All through the weeks that followed, I was too busy to be afraid, but I don't think I would have been afraid anyway. I kept thinking, as in a dream, this can't be happening to us. Why, we're Americans. We just don't lose battles." But the outmaneuvered and undermanned American and Filipino forces were losing against overwhelming Japanese forces. As the Americans retreated, Garen was sent to the island fortress of Corregidor in Manila Bay. This fort would be the last bastion of organized resistance. Garen worked tirelessly in makeshift hospital along the underground tunnels of the fort until the fort and its occupants were surrendered on May 6, 1942. Garen and the other medicos were able to stay and tend the wounded for the next 7 weeks.
The nurses end up having less and less men to take care of, and eventually they end up getting taken to Santo Tomas prison camp. And in the prison camp, these women, instead of just keeping to themselves, they ended up creating a field hospital there. They decided that they are nurses first. Their job is to serve mankind and make sure that they can take care of those men that they believed they were charged with their care. That's the reason why these 78 women were later known as the Angels of Bataan.
She would stay there for almost 3 years. The nurses at Santo Tomas cared for over 4,000 civilian prisoners housed there. For the first 2 years, the camp was run by the Japanese Civilian Reserve, and the conditions were not too bad. The nurses were able to get Red Cross parcels. They were able to plant a garden and to buy produce from local farmers. This all changed in February 1944 when the Japanese army took over the camp. Their rations were cut to barely a cup of cooked rice per day, and buying food from the locals was banned. Out of desperation, they ate the leaves of commode vines, red ants, and even cats. During this period, Garen lost 30 pounds and contracted beriberi. She later stated, "The worst part was that you didn't know whether to eat your ration today or save it for tomorrow, because you didn't know whether you'd get fed again or not." They slept on straw mat bunks with only 12 inches between beds.
The Red Cross would send packages into this women's prison camp. The Japanese would go through that first, and they would take the socks and underwear and things like that because the size of these women were about the size of most of the Japanese men at that time, and they were not getting replenishments and resupplied like they felt that they should. So they were taking that stuff for their own use and leaving these women in the camps with nothing hardly. So she ends up taking the packaging string, and you'll see where she took some bamboo, she fashioned it into knitting needles, and she knitted these stockings for her use, for the use of other nurses, and for other prisoners as well.
One night, Eleanor awoke to a Japanese soldier next to her. She stayed still, but was petrified. The soldier stole her ring and watch, then left. She missed the watch most of all because she used it to track the pulse of her patients. Another incident she recalled was being forced to open her footlocker. When she did, an American flag was revealed, but she told the Japanese soldier it was a dress, and he left it alone. Luckily for them, they only had to endure these conditions for a year. In February 1945, the Santo Tomas camp was liberated by elements of the 1st Cavalry Division. The first hint that the Americans were in the area was the smell of gasoline. The prisoners could hear sounds of battle when one of them exclaimed, "That's American gasoline. I could tell that smell anywhere." After their liberation, the nurses were visited by General MacArthur, who walked through their hospital facility. Shortly after this, they were trucked to an airfield and made their way back to the United States. Garen remembers that they ate every hour on the hour, and they could not eat enough ice cream. They were even awed by the simplest things they hadn't seen in years, like a good old copper penny. Garen, like many of her comrades, did not think she was any sort of hero. She wondered why people were making a fuss over her. To her, there was still a war on, and she had a job to do. After a short leave, Garen wanted to get right back to her duties and serve in the active war zones. Eleanor Garen served as an Army nurse until she retired in 1959. She passed away on November 26, 1993, at the age of 84. However, her story lives on at the Michigan Heroes Museum in Frankenmuth, Michigan.